Hello, Jaisy. This is Dr. Reddick. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to be reviewing your 2D and contact and efficiency. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started. First thing I'm looking for is to see if you have a sway. So on the negative move, we expect you to have a bit of a weight shift, but we want to make sure that it's not excessive. So draw a line on the back of your foot, and I just want to make sure that knee doesn't go past the line there, and you're doing just fine. So no evidence of a sway. Next thing I'm looking for is loss of posture. So when you go to hit the ball, we want you in an attacking posture, meaning a slight forward lean. And so let me get back here. I'm going to zoom just a tad, and we're going to go back on the screen. All right, so we take you from your negative move, and then kind of get you here. And so if we do this number, what I'm looking for, if I draw a line from your eye to your waist, I want to slightly forward tilt. And for the most part, you're straight up. You could probably even argue that you're a little tilted back. All right. Take it to the ready position, toe touch. Again, I'm drawing that line. Seeing if you're in a forward tacking position and you're slightly back. And when you get to the heel plant, that's when we expect you, let me see, heel plant, to be in that backwards position. But initially, we want these first two, forward, forward, and then back. I'm exaggerating a bit on the angle. I'm just trying to show you what I mean by attacking position. So I would say there's a bit of loss of posture there, and that's a power leak, as we say. So a lot of what I'm talking about is efficiency, and you can potentially lose power in your swing if we find these things. Next thing we look for is what we refer to as dead hands. So we take it to the negative move, which is the move away from the pitcher here, and then the toe touch, all right? And so negative move. And so you can actually see, kind of depends on where we start. But say if I were to draw a line between your hands and your nose, what we want to see is that increase as you go through your negative move and then toe touch. And you can see it definitely increases if we were to draw a second line to your nose. So no evidence of dead hand. That's very important because that stretch actually creates, that elastic stretch creates energy, which you transfer into your swing. All right. And then what I'm going to do here next is go to the toe touch position. There's a couple of things. And I'm going to go ahead and call your toe touch here. We'll say kind of there. All right. And so in the toe touch position, what I'm looking for is loss of base. So we want that back heel down, but we also want that not to be able to see the knee on the left side. So if you see, if I go a little bit further and you go to a heel plant, then at that point, you turn that knee. So even though it's the next screen or two, the next section or two, at this point, we would like to see that knee pointing out. And the reason that is, even though you're only I'm blanking on the word, sorry, only if you're a slide or two off, that still is causes inefficiency in the swing because you're having to catch up. So everyone has, different swing style, but at certain parts of the swing, we expect the body parts to be in a certain position. So if we do a toe touch, see how we're still seeing your knee. We would like your knee probably in that position at the toe touch. Frames, sorry. So even though it takes a few more frames to kind of get you where you need to be, that few seconds can actually throw off your timing as well as efficiency. So we would say that you have a loss of base there. And I believe for you, that's just going to be a technique issue. Next thing we look for at the toe touch position is flying elbow. So again, get you in a toe touch, but right there, I want to make sure that elbow is inside the hands. I'm going to take it. I also want to make sure that the barrel is in front of the hands. So you're good there. And I'm going to take it a few more frames. And this is very good here. So we kind of see what your hands and elbow are doing. and we want a straight line there. All right. And so that means you're whipping your hands through and not pushing through. So that's excellent. Next thing we want to see is how do you do when you get to toe touch to extension. So toe touch. And what I'm looking for, I want you to follow your elbow, your right elbow in relationship to your hip. So as we go through, we want to make sure it doesn't get stuck on that hip and that it passes through. All right. So here, 1, 2, 3. So I'm actually saying it does get a little stuck on that hip before it starts accelerating past. We want to make sure that it accelerates all the way through. All right, and that's important in regards to the coil. So when you do coil, it looks like you have a pretty good coil. So when we talk about coil, kind of relationship of your hips to your shoulders, you can see here your hips. Are kind of looking at the screen and your shoulders are turned. We call that X factor. And so here it actually looks like you have a pretty good X factor. We want you to fire with your hips, which actually you're doing pretty good. But then it's like your upper body is getting a little stuck and that elbow is getting stuck in that frame. We want it to slide right through. And that, with it getting stuck, it can actually reduce power. And looking back at your movement screen, there are some in your shoulders. There's a little bit of tightness, and maybe a little tightness in your thorax. So that could be causing that. But with the corrective exercises, I think that's going to be a fairly easy fix. And so I'm going to say you do have a gate swing, meaning that that elbow gets stuck there. What next we look for is drifting. So I'm going to get you in the heel plant position, which is like you're already in. Kind of draw a line in that front hip. And we basically want you to rotate around that line, not getting too far ahead. All right. And so I'm going to look at your hips here. Okay, so which is good because I forgot a step. So what I'm doing is looking at your hip, and you do rotate around there, but see how your right hip stops? All right, and so that could be somewhat related to your pelvic rotation, but on your movement screen, you actually did good on your pelvic rotation, but I want you to take a look at your right foot here. All right, so I'm gonna bring this back a little bit. What I'm going to do is draw a line. Sometimes we do it in the middle of the foot, outside of the foot. And what we don't want is for any of your foot to go behind that line there on the swing. So this is a weight shift that we're looking for. And you can see how your foot crosses that line. And ideally, we want you on your toes, on that back toe at the point of right before contact. Afterwards, it's okay if the foot falls down. But what's happening is because your weight is back, it is not shifting fully to the front. So you can see it's crossing that line. It's actually causing you not to fully turn your hips there. So remember when I made a comment, hey, actually, let me draw both lines. And then you'll be able to see it. All right, so we have you go through, you're rotating around it, but look at that right hip. See how it stops and it doesn't fully go? That's actually partially related to your weight being on that back foot there. All right, and so some people fix that. So say if their hip's a little tight or they can't control it, they'll slide that foot forward. But what we're seeing here is that your weight isn't fully transferred. Now you may feel like it, but based off the 2D analysis, we're not seeing your weight transfer fully to the front, all right? And then we'll look at the 3D and see if we're seeing the same thing. Hopefully we're able to get you in the frame. All right, so we're gonna go to the rear view here. And let's see how we do here. All right, so what I'm looking for here is what we call a loss of space. And I have to be real careful about the angle for you. So I'm gonna put it So what we do is we draw a line down your glutes to the rear. And what we don't want you to do is to come off that line. And I'm drawing in a little bit because I believe my camera angle is slightly off. So as you go through, you see how you come off that line there? That means your hips are going towards the ball. And what you're doing is you're decreasing the space between you and the ball, so you're giving less space for your hands to pass through. And so say if someone threw you an inside pitch, you may have trouble adjusting to that pitch because your hips are going forward. And this also makes sense as well, because as we saw, your hips weren't fully rotating. And you can even see here how that right hip, maybe you can't, but it's still slightly back compared to the left. We want it fully, both your hips facing forward, all right? Next one I'm gonna do is what we call casting of the hands. And basically what we do is we get you to the toe touch position. You wanna make sure your hands are inside your elbow there. And then I'm gonna take you to the heel plant issue, heel plant phase and hands inside the elbow. So not casting of the hands, but we do see a little bit of loss of space. So basically, if I had to say, if there's anything that we need to focus on is your hips. So we do have some corrective exercises that really focus on the hips. I think that'll help you out. And as I say that, also focus on your trunk, but let's work on getting those hips full range of motion. And then again, on the hanging back part, that may actually help your hips, as I talked about. So because that right hip doesn't fully get up there, but because your right foot, that weight is hanging back, that's causing that right hip not to fully go all the way around. So this actually may be just more of a technique issue than anything, but if you're feeling some tightness in your hips, we'll definitely need to work on it. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. Let's move to your 3D, and hopefully I pulled that up, right? Yes, I did. All right. So yeah, a little bit out of the screen, and so we'll have to repeat that, but let me see what we can get out of this. So we're going, going, going. All right, so what we're looking at here is one thing I'm looking at is your X factor. So you actually have a pretty good thoracic rotation. So 50. Oh, wow. So you have, oh, good. So 50, what is that? It's 0. Oh, yeah. So you have an X factor, if I'm doing this correctly, of about 50. And so a good range is 25 to 35. So you're getting that thoracic rotation, that's X factor, that separation of the upper body versus the lower body, which creates a coil. When you coil, it creates energy, and then you release the energy in your swing. Now, as we get here, let's see if we actually get, oh man. All right, let me go back one. Let me see, which session was this? That was, let me try. I apologize. Some of our picks got the softball players off the screen, so it's messing up with our numbers a little bit. Let's see if this one loads and this one does it. If not, we may have to repeat your 3D. Yeah, we're gonna have to, let me look at session 1. Or did I just look at session 1? All right, give me something good here. Give me something good. Let's let it load here real quick, see if we were able to get your entire swing caught in there. And you have to forgive us. Sometimes it's the timing that throws us off. Okay, looks like we got it. All right, so if we go here, yeah, so your X factor, you're getting good turn of the shoulders and hips. We're kind of consistently getting 50, probably even 55. So there's good torque in that you're getting that twist, you're generating the energy. And then let's see here, my pointer will work. Okay, yeah, so we got it. And so what we're looking for here on a 3D, we're looking to see, do your hips go first, followed by your trunk and then your arms? And you are just slightly in reverse order. All right, well, almost. So your trunk goes first, then your arm, then your hips. All right, but they're not far off. Let me zoom this in for you. And so what we look here on these squiggly lines, so the orange line is your pelvis, the green line is your trunk or shoulder, and then the red is your lead arm, or you can even consider it the bat. And so you see that they peak in this area right here. And so your velocity is actually good. This is actually a nice ratio that we're seeing here, maybe a little bit more in the lead arm we would want to see, but overall this is good. But you can see when they peak, what we look for is what peaks first. And at the bottom there, we actually want that orange line to peak first, which is your hips, which means you're firing first with your hips, followed by your thorax or your trunk. And so you're transferring energy from your hips to your trunk to your arm. And so here what it's showing is you're firing actually with your trunk. So your upper body's turning first, then your arms are going, and then your hips are playing catch up. All right. And so if we can just shift that hips over a little bit more, the velocity, like I said, is actually good. And you have a great X factor. We just need to get the sequencing. All right. And so we need those hips to fire, your trunk to fire, then your arm to fire. And so if we can get that addressed, an appropriate weight shift, I think you're going to be golden. I think we can help fix that pretty quickly. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll be sending you some more information, and I appreciate you working with us. Thanks.